Welcome to episode 222 of the Prosperity Practice, the podcast that has you living your most abundant life. My name is Danielle Amos, and I am your host. Today, I have a very special treat for you. I'm bringing on a current member of the Success Society. She is trained as a results coach with Tony Robbins. She's certified as an advanced belief clearing practitioner, and she has been studying and coaching for over 30 years with an extensional educational background in psychology and currently completing her master's in metaphysical science. Her name is Tanya-Marie Dubé. She is a firecracker. She's incredible. She was actually born into the foster care system, living in 8 homes before she was 2 years old. And then she was a homeless street kid on and off for 6 years from the ages of 12 to 18. She is now a 4-time podcast host, a motivational speaker, a published author, and an online educator, with her work getting in front of over 800,000 women worldwide. Tanya helps ambitious women who have been struggling with their recovery after narcissistic abuse. She helps them shift their paradigm so that they can raise their vibration, heal their past, and get on track and create a massive impact fast. So today I'm interviewing Tanya, and she's going to share her story, and it's fascinating. And she's recently got into the Thinking and Results program. So she's in the Success Society. I met her years ago because she interviewed me for an event that she was hosting, and our worlds kept circling. And she knew, she just had this feeling that I could help her. And she said that our program has just connected the dots for her. And she's since creating massive success, even more success and impact than what she already was doing. She explains more on the podcast interview. So I invite you to lean in and listen to this conversation. And for those of you that are subscribers or are inspired to subscribe so that you can hear the plus episode of where Tanya and I go deeper into her story. In fact, we giggle because she shares with me why sharing her story isn't important, and how meeting a stranger and him telling her this was the punch in the gut that she needed in order to let go of her past. Interesting, right? That's all in the plus episode. So lean in, enjoy this interview, and we'll see you on the other side. Hello, welcome. And I'm very excited to have Tanya with me. She is a friend, a colleague, a member of our Success Society. And I'm just really grateful. It feels like this interview has been months or maybe years, lifetimes in the making. And here we are. I'm going to have you share a little bit about your story. I know everyone just heard your bio, and you'll hear, for everyone who listens to the plus episode, you'll hear maybe why that's kind of funny that Tanya is going to share her story after she shares with us meeting a gentleman, John. And I'd like her to tell us also where she's going, because she is powerful and is helping now millions of women with narcissist abuse, recovering from narcissist abuse. And just a powerhouse. She's a powerhouse in our community. She's a leader and a real expert in her field. And you're absolutely going to love this conversation. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. So honored, of course, to spend time with you. Thank you.
So where are you going and what got you here?
Well, let me start with way back in the beginning. No, I'll say really quickly, the reason that story I find is important, especially when we're working with people and helping them get through the layers and the layers of the conditioning of their lives. The reason the story is important is so that, we can see each other in each other's stories, and we can see the journey in front of us. It doesn't feel so heavy, I think, right? So when I use my stories, I use them for that. And I'm laughing because you'll all find out why later. But I will say, I was born into the foster care system, and I lived in 7 different homes by the time I was 2, and moved into the 8th one when I was 2 years old. And And I found, that family really fought for me. They fought to keep me for 8 years. And it was just this beautiful, beautiful childhood that I had in this foster home. It was me and a bunch of other kids, a revolving door of children. My foster father and he was like a real father. I don't ever feel like I was lacking for a father because I had this very important and special man in my life. And my foster mother loved me. She just was busy with other things and very old school in her own things. But I would find myself seeing my mother on and off when, she would make the time to come or, whatever. So the whole thing was fraught with, all kinds of emotions all up in the air. But I found myself wishing so badly to have a family, a mother and a father and siblings and a house and a white picket fence and a dog. And I wanted the whole thing that when it happened, I literally jumped at it with, I was 10 years old. I jumped into this new life with my mother that I didn't know and my stepfather, and what I found was they were both very violent. He was a sexual predator. She would beat me up pretty badly all the time. They really tried to do a number on my emotional awareness, my emotional body, my psychological body, like who I was really like I could see it being broken, like they were trying to break my spirit. So at 12 years old, after I had just been beaten up pretty badly, I ran upstairs to my bed, and underneath in my mattress, I cut a hole and I had $18 saved in there. And I put it in my pocket and I went to the front door, and my mother was getting ready to leave and she was going to leave me with my sister. And all I could think was, I'm going to take my sister and run. I was 12 years old. And my mother got very quiet in the living room right beside me. And she was putting socks on my sister. And she said, if you leave and take your sister with you, I'll find you and I'll kill you.
Wow.
And I looked from her, I was bleeding. I looked from her, I looked out my screen door, and something inside me just said, run. So I did. I kicked open the door and I just ran for my life. And she chased me for a while. So I ran and ran and ran and ran. And then I hid under a bus station's seat in an enclosed bus station. And I just waited there for hours for the sun to go down so she wouldn't be able to find me. And I could see her drive by in her car. So I waited, and that was the first day of me living on and off the street for 6 years from 12 to 18 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting, right? So I'll fast forward to that night, my very first night. I was downtown Calgary. This all took place in Calgary. I was downtown Calgary and I was looking for a place to hide because I was quite literally like, what's happening? Like, what am I doing? Because I couldn't go home. That was not an option. Like that was not, just couldn't do that. I'd had enough. I felt like I'd taken enough beatings and it was pretty brutal. And so I found a tree whose branches went all the way down to the ground, and I scurried underneath that tree, and I was laying on my back looking like on the dead pine needles, and I was looking up through the branches and could see the sky, and I could finally breathe. And then I looked over, and in the trunk of the tree, there was a sign that said "Home Sweet Home." And I thought, oh my God, this is someone's house. Like I just I couldn't fathom it. I mean, I was a really well-learned child and I really loved reading, and I had read Dickens, really young. I started reading Dickens at 8 years old. So I understood this life a little bit, like let's go into like Dickens shows like the underbelly of society. And a lot of it is from a children's perspective. Like I read those books, so here I was living it. And I looked over at that sign and I thought, no, 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 something inside of me was just like, no, this is temporary. This is temporary. And that
Mm.
is really a saying that I've held on to with my entire life, good or bad circumstances. It's all temporary, and it is going to be whatever I decide to make of it. But none of it is meant to last forever. We're supposed to grow through it and do all of that stuff. But at 12 years old, all I could think was, this is not my life. This is not my life, Now,
So crazy. I mean, I have so many questions and I
oh,
want
please.
to move to the powerful part, but I think we could stick and talk about that part of your life for a while. I'm curious, did you ever see your sister again?
Yes, I did. I tried to maintain a relationship with my mother and my stepfather so that I could have my sister in my life. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I know. I look back and I did it to still be in her life because I wasn't sure that these things weren't happening to her.
Mhm.
But also we always had a really special connection, and she felt like my baby. You know, she was born when I was 11. So I was always the one taking care of her. And I was the one in the middle of the night giving her her bottle. And I was the one changing her diapers and took her for a walk. My mom never did those things.
Mm.
You know, so interestingly enough, later on in my life, I would discover that my mother was narcissistic, but I didn't know it at the time, of course.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Wow. And so then what happened later in life? What happened next?
So fast forward through everything, and I am now 16 years old and I'm in high school. And I decided to, like, now that I could emancipate myself from the, from the foster care system, I was like, okay, I have to quit school. I was sleeping in churches and hiding in cars and sleeping, sneaking into my friends' basements to find places to sleep, especially in the winter. Like, this was my life. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was a straight A student. My grades were starting to falter. My entire goal was to be able to finish school. So this decision did not come easily to me, but I had to quit. And when I was leaving, my guidance counselor said, this is not the decision I would make for you. And here's this psychology 101 textbook. You're taking it with you. And I was like, dude, I've been in therapy my whole life. I think I'm good. But he
Mhm.
was like, I want you to take it with you. Just take it with you. Stop arguing. So I took it with me, and fast forward a little bit more. I was in my apartment now and I had no furniture, but I had my own place. And I was so happy I had my own place. And I'm sitting on the kitchen floor. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do any adulty things at all. But I'm sitting on the floor, and there's this little side table, and this 101 textbook, psychology book is sitting there. I didn't have a TV, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just read it. So I pick it up and I let it open to where it's supposed to land, and I start learning. And then I started to notice that I would run into people who needed to know the exact same thing I just learned. And I
Mm.
was like, that's wild. I can't even believe it. Like, the words out of my mouth were, that's a weird coincidence.
Like I
Not
just read
knowing.
this. Yeah.
So I would be like, wow. And so I would start to teach it. And then I would, that would happen in subways and, like at work and like all these amazing things. So I started coaching at 17 years old, still believing that I needed to go to university and do all that stuff to have the letters behind my name and all that stuff that I dreamed about. Right.
Talk about a program.
I know. So then, yeah. So then it was just years of still really trying to survive all of that stuff. And I lost the apartment. My thinking back then was that I couldn't sustain anything. I
Mm.
couldn't hold on to anything. It was all going to fall apart anyway. The rug was always pulled out underneath me. And for the longest time, up until I was 40 years old, I decided that, talk about making a decision. I
Mhm.
decided that I was going to have to pay for the sins of my mother for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And what came with that was nothing working for me, you know? So I
Mhm.
really did live like that. I lived that existence. I couldn't hold on to anything. I was attracting all the wrong people to me. It was a combination and a perfect, you said alchemy earlier, a perfect alchemization of all of these negative things to give me more negative, right?
And
So
when did you have the like hindsight to be able to see that that was what you were attracting? Because that's like a huge level of awareness. Most people aren't able to look back and go, that's what I was doing. So obviously you've done a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of work with yourself to understand that. When was that? How did that happen?
So the first time I ever saw Tony Robbins, I was like 17 years old and sleeping in someone's basement. And I was watching late night television, and Tony came on with his, those infomercials he used to do with all the
Mhm.
CDs. And the way he was talking, I was like, I could do that. Like, that's crazy. I could do that. And so anyway, he had mentioned Jim Rohn, and he mentioned a whole bunch of other people. So my second home in life, or perhaps my first, was the library. So I'd like run over to the library and listen to all these things that I could listen to and read all the books. And so
Oh,
I really started my personal development so young. But
that's incredible. Like honestly, that you thought to go to the library.
I lived in the library. It's still my
Yeah.
dream to have a whole encyclopedia.
Yeah, same, same. Yeah.
Oh, but anyway, so yeah, I did that. And then I would find myself, of course, because you have the training, and until you shift your belief systems and your thoughts and your emotions and all of that, it's just stuff that lands on the surface, but I was able to use enough of it, right? Just to see where patterns of behavior were forming. I wouldn't have called it that then. What
Mhm.
I called it was, why do I keep dating the same guy over and over? He just has a different face.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So then my friends would be like, I don't know, you're just like, you attract those kinds of men. And I'd be like, no, though, but there's something like in me, like, why am I picking that? Why is that okay? But I wasn't able to put all the pieces together quite yet, but it was like the start of it.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
And just it's like being aware, noticing those synchronicities, like what's happening, becoming conscious rather than like really note like witnessing what's happening in your life rather than just being played almost, which
Yeah.
you know.
Just what I felt like. You say it all the time about being, a plaything for the universe. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that was literally my whole life was like this. I just, you don't know what you don't know, but your thinking really plays the biggest part. What you believe first plays the biggest part, and then your thinking follows. And then that thinking causes your emotions to cause this crazy vibration. And you're either going to be in a high vibration or you're going to be in a low vibration because of what you're feeling, because of what you're thinking, because of what you believe. So I started to pay attention to these things. And for about a year, I got really quiet, really quiet. And I started to notice, like, why am I putting up with abuse from boyfriends? Why am I picking these kinds of girlfriends? I was just in a state of like, why do I believe that this is acceptable for me? And it wasn't until a girlfriend of mine, I was dating a boy who was really violent. And he was gradually violent. So by the time it started happening, you want to believe that it's not really him. He's just struggling with something, and because I'd been through so much stuff in my life, I'm like, a narcissist's dream. Because I've been through so much stuff, I had this great understanding and awareness of human behavior. And then I was like trying to help him work through it, but really he was violent toward me. But my girlfriend had taken me aside and she was like crying and she said, I can't be friends with you anymore. And I said, what do you mean? Why? And she said, um, because I feel like he's going to kill you. And if he kills you or tries to kill you and I'm with you, something could happen to me.
Wow.
And I was like really taken aback. She told me this in her car and she
Wow.
was crying and she's like, so we can't be friends if you're going to stay in a relationship with him. And that was a huge, huge turning point for me with what I was allowing to happen to me in that space of my life. Yeah.
Wow. And
Uh-huh.
how old were you then?
19.
Wow. So let's talk about, because I really want to talk about how you help women now identify
Mm-hmm.
that they might be, in a narcissist relationship
Mm-hmm.
and have relations, because it may not only be their romantic partner, like you said, mothers, and really how you support them. So fast forward, because you said you've told me that you left when you were 40. So
Mm-hmm.
what was that relationship?
So yeah, that the longest relationship that I had outside of my relationship with my mother turned out to be narcissistic. And I
Mm,
didn't know it at the time. The way narcissism happens is it starts with a love bombing stage, and because we were so young and he didn't have the means to love bomb me with all kinds of gifts and things like that, what he did was and I want to say because we were so young, I think both of us got really wrapped up in the idea that we could have found someone like us, like that's such a beautiful thing. At any age, we really want to find someone like us. But for me, to find someone like me at that age was really something different for me.
mm,
So, he mirrored all of my likes. He mirrored all of my desires. He mirrored my beliefs. We were on the same page with religion, with philosophy, with life and where we're going and how partnerships are meant to support each other. It was like a whole bunch of talking where I look back and I was doing a lot of the offering of information. So, now in this space of talking about like how to spot a narcissist, be careful that you're not the one doing all the talking and him just or her just gathering the information so that they could mirror back to you what it is that you want to see. So, because I am such a big talker and I love sharing all the things, I was really bad at that. Like I would share so much information, and narcissists, what they're really doing in this stage when they're love bombing you, it's so that they can observe you without you noticing. because you're taking the love bombing, whether it's gifts and, showering you with trips and, lots of dinners and fancy restaurants, or just mirroring your likes and even your spirituality. Like, it gets pretty deep. The reason they're doing all of this to make you feel so safe is so that they can observe you and watch you, so that they can become like you. Right. But
And
we don't know that.
do you think that that's conscious, that they're doing it consciously, or is this something just a part of the
Um,
behavior?
I think it's both, to be perfectly honest, but the observation to watch you and to mirror you is intentional. I have to say, in all of my studying of narcissistic abuse and all of my coaching hundreds and hundreds of people, I'm going to say that, I feel like it's on the spectrum of some kind of anxiety disorder. It's definitely a psychosis. It feels like mental health issues all the way, because of what happens in that relationship, and where it actually goes is really dark, right? So, at the beginning, when they're watching you and they're observing you, it's interesting. They note the way that you do things and you behave. The reason they're doing this is because intrinsically narcissists don't like themselves at all. They
Mm.
don't like, I want you to picture, if I can, like, go into some of your negative self-beliefs about yourself, and like really go there, can't do this, not good enough, no one's going to like me. Why even bother trying? I've never succeeded before. It's all against me, like all of these things. And then I want you to times that by 100. And then I want you to make it really, really loud. Like, that's all you can hear. And now, on top of it, you don't believe in yourself at all. You need a host. Like, you need a person that you can latch onto, so that people don't see all of your self-limiting beliefs first, but they see this amazing person who's beside you, who they can say, you like her? I'm just like her. I'm just like this person. This is an extension of me. So it's almost, it's imperative for them to become like you, so people believe that you're the same. Where it starts to turn against them is when they realize that they're nothing like you.
Mm.
And now you suddenly become competition for the space. Then they start to pick you apart piece by piece. They're systematically dismantling you so that you become like them. And now they have become like you. And what's going on in the background of these kinds of relationships, right from the very, very beginning, they start to say things about you that aren't true to their family and their friends, because narcissists are always the victim, always, always, always the victim. So you looked at them the wrong way, they're going to tell someone in their family that you always are staring at them meanly. Like, it's always worse than it actually is, like anything like that. But it starts right at the very beginning. And it's why a lot of people in relationship with narcissists can't really mesh with their families.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting. So do I believe it's intentional? I do. I do also believe it's who they are, and they've gotten used to it. You know, I always say that the universe gives us a master's degree in something, each one of us, and I feel like when it comes to narcissists and, the way that they operate, they have a master's degree in manipulation. Like, they know how to get stuff done to get what they need, to get their needs met. And so, everybody is collateral damage for that. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty insidious. It's pretty wild. But, more than anything, we have to remember that narcissists, maybe, for those of you who don't know, narcissists really just pick at what's already there. So us, with all our unhealed parts and our wounded parts leading our lives, like, this is what narcissists pick up on. And this is the stuff that they make worse, right? So it's all your worst
That's
fears, your
interesting.
insecurities. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because, like, with awareness now, you could say, okay, well, like that projection that you're picking at is actually something for me to heal within me.
That's
So if
it.
you had it at a different lens, which is must be so challenging when you're in that situation,
Mhm.
and if you could see it as, like, like me, like witnessing you saying that, I'm like, wow, that's such a great opportunity for the projection piece, and going, that person's mirroring back what I get to heal now. And they're helping me make that conscious because I'm ready to heal that.
But in the moment, what it comes out as is, the way that they do it. Not all narcissists are vocal in the way, like, I would say overt narcissists that are very, they don't care about image. They can't hold down a job. They're always really loud. They're violent. They're a little scary to be in their energy. Overt narcissists are a little bit different. Covert narcissists are the ones that are a little more scary, because everybody likes them. They know exactly how to maneuver in the world. So people think they're charming and they're pleasant. And they often hold positions, where you would never think that someone who works in that thing would be this way, so it's all set up like that on purpose, but in the moment, covert narcissists, how they start whittling away at you is, if he's a man, the narcissist, and you're a woman, he'll watch and flirt with everyone in front of you and then treat you like you're nothing. It happens like this a lot. So, everybody gets put ahead of you, everybody and everything, the dog, the post, like the post person, like everything gets put in front of you and your needs all the time, but they expect you to put them ahead of everything. And so the thinking, the psychology behind this is, I'm going to make you feel like of me. So it does really start to whittle you down and your confidence starts to wane. You get so caught up with what they're going to do next, say next, how they're going to be, that you lose your thinking. You just lose yourself altogether. You don't even know who you are by the end of it. So to have the perception that this is for me, they're mirroring something, doesn't
Yeah.
happen until way later. That's
Yeah.
when women find me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So interesting. So most of us don't know we're in a narcissistic relationship until the end of it, because we become supreme detectives and we start going down this rabbit hole of looking like, why, like, is this Google, you're in Google, is this behavior weird? Or why do people behave like this? Like you start it like that and it takes you down this rabbit hole and you're like, what? Gaslighting? What? Flying monkeys, flying monkeys are the ones that are like the diehards for the narcissist. They think it's all you and they re-traumatize the victim, but you don't know words like this until you start this deep dive. And by the time you realize, what you're dealing with, it's time to leave. You got to leave, or they left you, it's one or the other. But yeah, it's really interesting. I had the fortune and the misfortune to date a narcissist after that 18-year relationship. So I knew enough about narcissism that it was really like I was watching the narcissist in its environment. It was an interesting thing. And I knew in the moment, even though it was a painful relationship for me, but I knew in the moment that this was going to really be beneficial for my work, which
Wow.
is fascinating. Yeah.
Wow. And there you go, attracting exactly, what you need in order to help people. And at this stage in your life, you had a different perspective so that you could really learn from it. That's fascinating.
Yeah, isn't it?
So tell me, because I mean, you have quite the bio, reading, you've worked with Tony Robbins now, you are doing your master's, is that correct at the
Mhm.
moment?
Yep.
You've studied, and you're also, now you're in the Success Society. So it's been what, 6 months? About
Yeah,
6 months?
it has since December. Well, what is this? 5 months?
Not,
Yeah.
yeah, not quite.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm fascinated to hear how the work that we do, how that supported what you already know, because you're already so well educated and you know a lot of this. So what what changed, or what had you say yes, and how has that supported your career and your life, and where are you
I
now?
think I think that for me, I had this like huge. I'm a very, very intuitive person, and I would say that my intuition guides me through everything in my life. And so, um, when I interviewed you, I was extremely drawn to your energy, and the things you were saying were hitting on this. It was like that part of me was asleep for so long. When I came out of that 18-year relationship and I was starting my life with the two children, my two children, and trying to figure out what I was going to do, knowing I wanted to work with women, I just was so lost in the anger of the whole thing and blaming myself. I developed so many patterns of behavior that were like functioning against me.
Mm.
I was in a lot of pain in my heart and in my mind. And by the time I met you, I'd had enough experience now, seeing like I had attracted a book thing for me where I, was asked to do a chapter in this book right away, like almost right away when I started the first part of my career, helping women in narcissistic recovery. Um, but, and then it went away and then it would die down. And I was like, well, why though? Bring me all the things. I want all the opportunities. Like I was ready for it, I thought, but then I wasn't ready for it. And it was starting to show. And then the other narcissist happened. And then, so I wasn't ready yet. And it brought me back to something one of my acting teachers used to say to me. He was like, you're just not done suffering. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, you'll know one day.
Wow.
And I did. I realized that when I finally left that relationship, I was like, okay, I'm done suffering, but I wasn't done suffering because I wasn't willing to look at my own conditioning I had done to myself in order to survive that relationship, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And so by the time I met you, you were saying all these things that I felt were like these sparks lighting up inside of me. And I was just like, what? Like, that's wild because I believe these things, but they're not alive in me. I can't connect with those things yet. And then I was noticing in my business, it was like getting off the ground and then flatlining and getting off the ground and flatlining. And I was like, I don't have time for this. In my mind, I was always like, you can always go back to a 9 to 5 job, but I was like, but that's not what I want. And so I was fighting with myself all the time. And so you stayed in my world. We were circling around each other for a while. And you ended up saying something to me about wishy-washy results. I told you that before. And I
Yeah.
was like feeling like I'd use those words. I'm living a wishy-washy kind of life, and that's not me, and so that hooked me too, because I was like, that's what I needed to hear. And then it was something else too. You had a free challenge. I can't remember which one it was. It was really good. Reclaim. Oh, I can't remember.
When we
In
did
December.
reclamation. Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was December, but
Mm.
but we were in that space. And I told you this the other day, but I think it's worth mentioning. I'm always looking for signs of things. Like I know intrinsically, I've been through so much. I know I can bet on myself. But my habits and patterns of behavior and my thinking was working so hard against me that I couldn't breathe before bed. Like I couldn't sleep properly through the night, and it was like all these things. And so I was looking for signs. I was like, okay, I was meditating and I'm like, just show me a sign that this Empress program is for me. Like it's an investment for me. And I've learned not to look as an investment as something against me. I know if I invest in myself, I'm going to get something out of it. So that piece was a little bit scary. But I was like, show me a sign. And I was walking through Victoria, British Columbia, where I'm living right now. And I and as I was going downtown and around a corner, I see the Fairmont, and I was like, oh, I love the Fairmont, and it overlooks the ocean. And then I came around the front and I see the word Empress, and I was like, that is too funny. Okay, where do I sign up? And I think it was like the second day of your challenge. I was like, okay, I'm ready.
That's so funny. I know that hotel. I actually stayed at it. My mom lives in Victoria. And
Yeah.
my mom's like, you're not going to stay with me? I'm like, no, I'm going to the Empress Hotel. It's like, it's so funny.
It's
Yeah.
so beautiful, right? And it's so like old world charm in there. And I love all of that. So yeah, I just knew that the program itself is, in my mind, to it's designed to get you out of your head, out of your conditioning, but into creativity. Like, do you really want what you say you want? I was like, yes. This was you talking. So I'm just mimicking what you said. Do you really want it? Yes, I do. Right. I'm on the other end with all these people, the hundreds of people doing your thing. And I was like, yeah, I do really badly, actually. And then you said something like, well, then, you're talking about conditioning and, what you're thinking matters and it moves your emotions and that moves your actions. And it's all in the actions. And I was like chomping at the bit at this point because I was like, I know all of this, but I felt like it was waking up in me again. Right. So it was this
Mm.
beautiful, so when I tell you I am so grateful for you and for this program, it's because I feel like I became alive again with this. I feel like myself again. And now, of course, all these things are happening in my world, which are incredible. So,
It's so good. And, I remember when we were messaging back and forth about the wishy-washy results, and I'm like, because you're wishy-washy in your head. Stop it.
I was like, I
Make a
know.
decision because you know that you're made for more. Like I knew that from the moment I met you. I'm like, holy shit, this woman is just fire. Like she's got such a purpose, such a drive. And people listen when when you talk, they stop, they want to hear, they want you to lead them. So
That's
it's
right.
just within. It was
Oh,
just within. So
that's
the results, the
amazing.
fact that it hadn't happened yet was just a belief. It was that simple. And so
I know.
we just had to change that paradigm. And that's what you're learning to do. And so and I knew like that's why I can promise because I'm like, fuck, like jump because I know where you're going. Like, because
I know.
when do you want this? When do you want your first 5-figure, client? You want it
Yeah.
like tomorrow or in 2 years? Because you get to decide. That's the only part for you to decide, not the how, just like when are you gonna have the courage to say yes. And I just I also had you promise, and you promised me that you were going to be totally coachable, lean in. And I've seen you do that. And I love that because for me, that's who I am. And
Yeah.
I resonate so much with who you are and how you show up. And I just have so much respect for that. And I see you lean in, and we've had some comfortable conversations and uncomfortable conversations because that's what this work is about.
Yeah.
But two leaders speaking to each other, going, I see you and I see what you're here for. And you speak to me that way. We're just like co-creating and reflecting back what it means to be powerful women leading right now in 2024. And I so honor that within you. I see that within you. And I'm just so grateful that you said yes, because this is just the roadmap to you having everything that you desire and impacting the world the way that you came here to impact the world.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I am so in for that. My whole life I've said, why can't we get a blueprint to this stuff? Like, where is it? And I was like, very similar to Bob, when I hear his story, I
Mm.
was picking pieces from here and cherry picking and trying to put something together for my life, but I still couldn't nail it all down. So when I was coaching people when I was younger, when I started coaching at 17, I was trading for like wine, cigarettes, food, like all the, like I didn't know I could do this for a living. I
Mm.
thought you had to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist or something. Like I didn't realize the potential there at all, but what I was doing was realizing, through the whole thing, that I'm going to take it back to when I was 12, realizing that this is just temporary. This is just temporary. Knowing that every stage I'm in, everything that holds me back is just temporary is really, it catapults me because I don't have to hold on to it and it's not weighing me down like this is permanent.
Yeah.
What a big difference.
What a huge difference. And you're right. It's like I'm grateful to Bob every single day for the roadmap and for what he figured out. And now you just like what you're seeing, you just get to follow it, and
Yeah.
it creates the new result, the new result, the new result. So you attracting clients.
It's so much fun too, because in my energy as well, because this is all energetics, right? In my energy as well, I'm showing up so much more, so much, it's just so much more clear. I don't have the thinking that's bogging me down anymore because I'm back. I feel like I'm back. And when I do something to, the 1000th degree, like I go for it. And I've never been the kind of person, to pull away from that. I've done some great things in my life. And it was really important as I was healing through this process to allow myself to go backwards. And I'm going to encourage everyone who's listening to do that. Go back and see where you've succeeded. And it doesn't matter if you were 13 years old or you were 15 or you were 21 or you were 30, and you're not there anymore. Like, I want you to look back, not to be like, those were my glory days, because what I've learned now is that's old news. But what
The
I
best
want
is
you
yet
to
to come.
it's yet to come, but to pat yourself on the back, because we always tend to think we need proof before we do something, which is not true. But if you're looking for the proof, really bet on yourself. Look back to those points where you didn't think you could do something and then you surprised yourself. This is the whole point to journeying and visioning and being in your imagination and really embodying that you are, you say it all the time, we are the stuff, we are source energy, which we are. We're balls of light in these human bodies. We're not gendered. We're not our ages right now. So if we can buy into that and just understand that, we're made of source energy, which is world building energy. We are meant to create our world.
Yeah.
When you said that, that landed with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true, because we are manifesting 24/7.
Yeah.
Every single thing I've ever
Cannot turn it off.
had, every single thing I've ever had, good and bad, I manifested most of that,
All of
but
it. It
I'm
wouldn't
going to
be, it
say,
wouldn't be
well, the
there.
one area where it gets a little tricky for people, and it was hard for me, was, sometime around 6 years old, I suffered a sexual assault of some kind. And, I've struggled with this piece. Like, how is that the thing that makes me, how did I manifest that? But then what I'm doing by thinking that way at all is that I'm leaning so much into this low vibration, human energy, the gravity, the pull
Yeah.
of the heaviness of this thing. And I forget that my soul needed the experience. to do the work I'm doing now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
so it's
that's,
like, it's part of the soul mission and it's so hard. I mean, that's, it's so hard to understand that the human side of us going, what?
I know.
And I think for me that I have it right there, the book, The Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. And at 6, that girl needed to find I am forgiveness,
Mm,
like that's
yeah.
the book just how, and it's so hard for the human side of us, but the soul is wiser. The soul is all knowing. The soul is,
Right. This is
yeah.
a conversation. I know we're getting a little strapped for time. I'll tell it really quickly, but when you're raising children through going through narcissistic abuse recovery and the kids, kids come to the world, we all do, with infinite knowledge.
Mm,
And I think it's stripped away from us as we get older, and we
great.
start getting conditioned by the world around us. But it's funny. I had a conversation with my daughter and she was like, struggling through different pieces of her own experience of this. And I said to her, okay, let's just take a breath for a second. She was 12 at the time. And I said, just close your eyes for a second. So she closed her eyes and I said, I want you to imagine your soul being 2000 years old. Just imagine you've incarnated, you've been here, things, like you're here for a reason. Just keep your eyes closed. And then I said, and now I want you to imagine, this person that you're struggling with. I want you just to imagine maybe his soul is brand new. Maybe his soul is brand new. So who then becomes the teacher and who becomes the student? Right? It's such an important thing to remember.
Really.
And so her eyes opened and her mind was blown and she was like, that's wild. And I said, but you have to remember how soul contracts work though. Like we are all here. And you asked me earlier. And so I guess I'll touch on this now, how it's working, how the whole experience worked for me. In these soul contracts, this is what I imagined happened. He and I at some point before we got here, we were like, okay, all right, we're going to do this thing. We're
Mhm.
going to do this thing. We're going to meet up with each other. And maybe his conversation sounded something like, and if you're not on your path yet, then that's going to be my job to do it. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. And it might not be okay. And I'd say, whatever you need to do to get me on my
Yeah.
path, that's
Oh
what
my
I need.
God.
I know this is like what I feel like
I
when I do
know.
meditations, this is what comes through. And so I agreed. We
Yeah.
agreed to do this
And you
together.
said thank you to him. You said thank you for helping
Right.
me get on my path.
And I wanted it.
Yep.
So here we are. I have
Whew.
probably had many moments where it was like, Oprah used to say, first you get a nudge and then you get pushed down the stairs and then you get bumped by a car and then you get hit by the car and then you get the Mack truck moment. This was the Mack truck moment. So there were all the other moments that I just wasn't getting it or seeing it for whatever reason. My conditioning was keeping me down and I just didn't know yet. But yeah, this was my Mack truck moment. And I think, I am so, and this I always say to my clients, you're going to hate me, you're going to hate what I have to say right now, but you're going to
Yeah.
have to just sit with it. I am so grateful for the experience because it really put me on the path to where I am now. And the level of forgiveness for myself, my judgment has gone, my heart is filled with love. I don't have any more anger, and that's something for me because I used to walk around with a big chip on my shoulder. So this is huge for me. And the reason I was able to get there is because I understand the soul contract piece. I am in gratitude for that because this is where I'm supposed to be. Where I'm going is what is meant for me. Right. So that's how it
Huge,
all comes back together. Yeah.
huge, huge. And I love that you brought that and that mm, beautiful, so beautiful and such a great awareness. And I invite anyone listening to see if you're able to see that point of view for yourself. And the goal, I believe, is to get yourself to a point, heal yourself, get yourself to a point, forgive yourself, get the help you need, the support you need to, when you're on the other side, you are standing in gratitude for that relationship, like what Tanya says, because, and this is like for anyone that has a relationship that we've been talking about, narcissist abuse, but also it could be an event. It could be situations that you've experienced in your life. And I was saying to Tanya before we hit record, like many people will have events happen to them and it will be the reason why they fail or not living the life they want. And few people have that event be the reason why they rise. And those people that have that event be the reason why they rise, if they look back, they have the same attitude that you just had. They see it as a turning point. There's so much gratitude, but they've had to make the decision to have that perception.
Yeah, that's it.
Huge.
That's it 100%. And I think, when we're going through abuse, on any level, there's something in that for you to look at, someone trying to dim your light. Why? Why was someone trying to dim your light? What is it about you that's so spectacular that lower level energy can't handle that? Like, you're meant for more. You're meant for more. And it's up to each one of us individually to be able to go back and to find that, but
And
that's
to declare it.
to declare
Declare
it.
it for yourself. Like, because no one can do that part for you. Like, people can say, like, I see this in you, I see this in you, and that's amazing. And you can borrow their belief, but it really doesn't happen until you believe it for yourself.
That's it. I see it all around me all the time. I live in, again, Victoria, British Columbia, and there's a huge drug problem here, and I look around and I see it all around me. What can happen when you let the circumstances of your life, the people who have beat you down, the ones who have told you you are not made for anything, that your life is worth nothing. I see it all around me in how it can manifest in the other direction.
Yeah.
So you have a choice. We get to choose this for ourselves, and just like that little 12-year-old inside of me, and it's why I tell that story, if I could think that at 12 years old, you can pull it out of yourself at your age now. This is temporary. This is not my life. I get to choose. That's my sovereignty. I take that back. That's my authority. So,
And then once you take that back, you learn that you're a creator and that you're creating, and you get to start right now from where you are.
that's it.
So incredible. Oh, I feel like I could talk for hours. I like, even when you mentioned your kids, I was like, oh my goodness, because I know your kids are loving that you're in this work as well, and um playing with it. And I find that, do you like, tell us one little story if they won't mind, if you would share something that they've um shared with you or noticed about the change or some of the things you're learning.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, I'll preface this with saying they've been raised in a psychology 101 class. Okay.
They've
you
had a
know,
witness before this.
I know, but I discuss everything with them, like every single thing that I'm doing in my life, because like I want them to see it. I want them to know what things cost. I want them to know what life is. I want them to know how to go after their dreams, and I want them to see what I'm doing. So when I started this program, I was like, okay, guys, because this is us, the three of us together. We're doing this alone, well, I mean, for all intents and purposes, in this physical reality, it's the three of us, right? So we're doing this work together, and I'm like, I'm jumping into this program, and the kids are like, go for it, mom, you can do it, you can do it. So I was like, okay. So every time I would hit a snag, I would talk about it with them. We always because they're homeschooled, we get to spend hours and hours walking during the day. Like, we get to do all these awesome things, right? So I'd spend all this time with them, and I'm like, okay, I've hit this wall, and I'm trying to think it through. And they know me. They know that I have to hear myself talk to come to my own answer. So, then we're all discussing it. But when I started hitting these bigger moments, like I started hitting these goals that I was going for, my daughter was like, this is wild. Like, look what you're doing. And I said, I know, this is pretty amazing. I said, I'm always saying, I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful for this. So my daughter's going to start working on this stuff with me. Like, I've been teaching them every step that I get through, because, as my life has shown me, when I teach it, I embody it, and then I also get to help them with their thinking and where they're going to be going from here,
Oh,
you know,
magical.
but yeah, I teach them so much of the things that I learned from you,
I
and
love it. Your son, didn't he say like about the
oh
money?
yeah,
He's like, why are you asking for that much when you can ask this much?
I'll say it really fast. I'll do the story really quick, but part of the program, you were like, I can't remember exactly what you said, but basically what I took from it was, yeah, why don't I have a nicer wallet? I want a nicer wallet. So I was like somewhere to put my keys. That was it. But I was like, I wanted to find something. So I went looking for a Kate Spade wallet, and I found one for $75 brand new. So I was like, amazing, right? Because as you always say, money saved is money earned.
Yeah.
So I was so happy with that, and I put my keys in there, and I was so thrilled with it. But anyhow, so I go across the street from where we were living, because we travel around in Airbnbs, right? So I go across the street to meet these people that are giving this wallet to me. And I go, right away, go to check the mail right after. And so my son's with me through the whole thing. And I give them $75 for the wallet. And then I check the mail and there's a $75 check from this credit card company who they messed something up. And so they just thought, send it to me. And I'm like, Ben, look, $75. We just paid $75. That's crazy. I didn't even know this money was coming. And so he's like, I don't understand. Why did you only ask for $75?
Could have asked for like 75,000.
I was like, very good point. Yeah, he's always saying stuff like that. He's a wise little guy. But
I
yeah.
love it. And he's like, got a point there, you know? Ask
Yeah. He's
for
like, why
more.
don't you just ask for bigger? I don't understand you.
Paradigm box. Yeah.
So funny. I
We'll
know.
get
I'm like,
there.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Add a zero, add a zero, add a zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh, Tanya, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my world. Thank you for the both of us for attracting each other. Thank you for your work in the world and your willingness to be so open with yourself and heal and go first so that you can teach others and be there for other women. It's really important what you do. And I love you and I'm so proud and I'm cheering you on. And you're just getting started. So, for all of our listeners, if you resonated with what Tanya had to say, perhaps it's you're looking at your own relationship or looking back on a relationship that you've been in, reach out to her, follow her on Instagram. All of her socials are in the show notes. And if they would like to find out more, what's the best you've got to download for everybody? Can you explain that?
I do. I always have things coming. I've got something in the works, but where they can go right now is tanyadubé.com. I have something really simple and easy because I know when we're going through this, we're in the fog and it's hard to focus. So I've created something gentle, a lovely, like feminine approach into figuring out who you are again with five ways to reclaim your life after narcissistic abuse. It's a lot of there's meditation, there's journal prompts for you. It walks you through just entering into your feminine body. It's one of the very first things that I did to help myself, and it just got me grounded again, feeling okay in my skin. So that's what I've created. Yeah.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and reach out, Tanya and I are both very open on DMs. That's how we communicate ourselves. So I know it's her answering. So go send her a message. You can ask your questions. She'll talk to you about how she can help you and support you through some of the programs that she has. Please feel confident doing that. She's here to help. And I want to thank you for your time today. And for all their listeners, if you could share this interview, help us get this story out. And of course, give us a 5-star review and thumbs up. Would be so grateful. So with that, thank you. Any last quote before we wrap?
Oh my goodness. Any last words? Just your whole point to being here on this planet, in this body, the soul driving this vehicle is to remember who you are. Remember who you are. So don't let the low vibration hold you down. Don't get stuck here. This is not what's meant for you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you can do it. You got it in you.
You do. All right. Expect abundance. Thank you, everybody. Wasn't that incredible? Okay. Well, we continue this conversation in the plus episode 222 plus. For all of our subscribers, go check it out there. In the meantime, go follow Tanya on all the socials. We've included her social handles as well as her email and her website. Go get her freebie that she shares, 5 steps. Reclaim your life in 5 steps after narcissistic abuse. And it's very cool download for you, even if you don't believe perhaps you're in an abusive relationship at the moment. What's interesting is that I think you'll find that it can help you in other ways, because it's not only in your personal relationship. You could have a boss or a business partner that has played that role in your life. Go and find her, message her, and we'll see you on the plus episode.